How you doing, everyone? Scott back again. Finally back. I think it's been about 2 weeks since I made a video, but I've now been back at work and I've just been so tired. I've hardly been able to even stay awake, never mind make a video. So I'm finally back with my Judas Priest album ranking. 18 albums, 18 studio albums. I'll be going from 18 to 1, least favourite to my favourite. It's a big discography, so that's why I've kind of been putting it off. But it was, I don't think it was surprising when I was going through these albums. There was obviously some that I knew a lot about and that I knew I loved, and there were some that I thought, I'll go back, I'll give it a listen again, and I'll see what I think. But at the end of the whole kind of process of going back and listening to these albums, I thought, I know now why. It's not really a surprise why I don't really know these albums as well as the others, because I just don't like them as much and I don't listen to them as much. So in that sense, I wasn't really that surprised, because it's kind of how I felt about those albums anyway. It's really hard with Judas Priest as well, because they've not really got any really bad albums. You can sit and easily listen to any Judas Priest album, I think, in my opinion, without going, that is absolute crap. So, yeah, in terms of putting them in some sort of order, it was really easy to rank maybe the top 10, but after that, it was quite hard. The ones that I knew were good albums, but I just didn't have that same connection with. So, like I said, 18 albums, I'll get straight into it because it could take a while. I'll try not to explain myself too much, but you know, I'll kind of give you some sort of reason as to why or these are coming in where they are. So anyway, number 18, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to keep up with numbers because after about 16, I'll just forget. So anyway, 18 is going to be the debut Rock-a-Rolla from, I think, 1974 or 5 or somewhere around that time. I wouldn't say this was like a massive surprise for people. It's not that kind of go-to Judas Priest album unless you're kind of following them from the start. It's not got that same Judas Priest sound. As you'd probably tell, they're kind of still looking for a sound at this point. So that has to come in at number 18 because I really just don't listen to that much. So that is Rock-a-Rolla. Next up is an underrated Judas Priest album from the kind of newer era, and a good album. When you're in that kind of mood for this album, this is a really good album, but you just find yourself not really being in the mood for this that often. I think that's a problem for me anyway. And it's Nostradamus. Concept album from 2008, I think it is. Yeah, 2008. And like I said, it's not a bad album, it's just not an album I reach for a lot of the time. But when I do sit, and when you sit and listen to it properly as a concept album in full, it's pretty good. So that's coming in at number 17. Number 16 is the first without Rob Halford. This is the first with Ripper Owens, and that's Jugulator. A good album. It's just, for me, it gets really, not too heavy, but too heavy for Judas Priest, if you know what I mean. Like when you listen to the song Brain Dead, you just think that is a heavy, heavy song for Judas Priest, like 1997. So, and again, it's one of those albums that doesn't really sound like Judas Priest. It would have been better if it come out as a different band, a different name, because it kind of takes away from the Judas Priest sound. But it's, again, it's not saying it's a bad album, it's just not Judas Priest for me. And the cover is horrific. I hate that cover. Especially this version, it's really pixelated. I don't know if it's meant to be like that because, you know, you got the different logo, which is really clear, but you've kind of got this pixelated Jugulator in the picture, which just does not do it for me. So, good album, crap cover, Jugulator. Next up is probably going to be a surprise, but you know I like a surprise in my rankings. It's going to be Stained Class. Now this could easily rank right up in the top 5, 3, or even top the list for some people, but I think this kind of falls in the era of you had to kind of be there when this came out to really appreciate this album. That's not saying it's not a good album, because it is. It's got songs like Exciter on it, amazing song. Saints in Hell, Savage, Beyond the Realms of Death, really good song. But I think it's, if you're drawn to a certain era of Priest, and if this isn't your era, then this just isn't your era. It's just got that real 70s sound, which is not going to be a surprise. It was out in the late 70s, but yeah, I think it's one of those albums. I mean, I'm only 34, so I wasn't even born when when a lot of Priest albums came out, but you know, it's just got that 70s sound, which I'm not really overly drawn to. So Stained Class, that's the next one. Next up is going to be Sad Wings of Destiny. Might be another surprise for some people, but again, I would say Priest are still kind of trying to find their sound. But again, great songs. Victim of Changes, Ripper, Dreamer, Deceiver, Tyrant, Epitaph. I mean, it's a good album. This is kind of, I would say, along the lines of the kind of deeper version of Judas Priest, where their lyrics were a lot deeper, their music wasn't as, I would say, like anthemic. It was more, you know, this is what we're feeling, this is what we want to write about, so this is what our album is. And like I said, it's not a bad album, this just isn't an album I reach to on a regular basis. So awesome artwork though, Sad Wings of Destiny. Next up is going to be Sin After Sin. Again, some great songs on this. You've got Let Us Pray, Call for the Priest, Dissident Aggressor, Diamonds and Rust is on this, which I think is a great cover. But again, it's just that kind of early Priest sound that I'm not overly drawn to. And the cover's dull. It's not what Priest are known for in future albums. So this is next, Sin After Sin. Am I surprising you yet? I bet I am. Next one now. The next one I'm going to talk about, I don't actually have. I like to do these rankings when I've got all the albums in my possession, but when it came down to it, I actually realised I didn't have this album. And I thought I did. I thought I got it in a CD haul that I got at the start of the year, but turns out I don't. But anyway, I'm going to talk about it. Next one for me is going to be maybe very surprising for some people looking at the albums that I've already shown, but it's going to be Demolition. Second album with Ripper Owens on vocals. I really enjoy that album. I think it's just got that Judas Priest sound back to it. After Drugulator, they kind of went to that kind of heavy, maybe more industrial route. But Demolition just has some great tracks, some killer hooks in it. Just more of that kind of catchy Judas Priest that you're kind of used to in the mid-80s to late 80s. So, but again, it's one of those albums that the cover is absolute crap. But, and I mentioned the cover, I know it's about the songs, I mentioned the covers though because Judas Priest, like Iron Maiden, are known for their covers. And at that point, the covers just weren't cutting it for me, a bit like Iron Maiden in the 90s as well. But yeah, I would say that's such an underrated album. If you like that 80s sound or even the newer sound of Iron Maiden, go back and listen to Demolition again because it is a really, really good album. So that is Demolition. Next up is going to be the classic British Steel, probably their kind of breakout album. Songs on this, Rapid Fire, awesome. Metal Gods, one of their best. Breaking the Law, obviously everyone will know that. I still like that song. Grinder, United, Living After Midnight, still like that song as well. Some great tracks. I wouldn't rank it as high as some, but again, that's because of the kind of sound and when it came out. I didn't grow up listening to British Steel. I was listening to more of the late 80s stuff and the newer stuff. So, but again, I'm not saying this is a bad album. It's definitely worth having in the collection, but this, for me, is where it ranks. So, British Steel. Next up is going to be... I'm getting confused now. Point of Entry. Another really underrated album from Judas Priest, in my opinion. 1981, this is where they kind of start to change their sound, kind of breaking into the mainstream, if you like. Great songs: Heading Out on the Highway, Hot Rockin', Turning Circles, Desert Plains, Solar Angels. Just some really great tracks on this, and it kind of gets overlooked because of probably the albums that it's sandwiched with. I mean, you've got British Steel on one side, you've got Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith on the other. So, yeah, that's maybe why it kind of gets overlooked. And it is kind of one of those weaker 80s albums, but I still really enjoy this album when I put it on. And I always preferred this album cover as well, as opposed to the other cover. So, that is Point of Entry. Next up is going to be Killing Machine. Now, when we talk about that kind of 70s, early 80s sound, this has definitely got that sound, but the songs on this, for me, are just superb. Kicking off the album is Delivering the Goods. You've got Evening Star, Hellbent for Leather, which I still love that song. Take on the World is one of the first songs I actually heard from Judas Priest, and it's just that really kind of slow, plodding, melodic song, but I really, really like it. You've got Burning Up, The Green Man Alicia, the cover from Fleetwood Mac. That's a really great song. Killing Machine, Running Wild, Before the Dawn, just a superb album. And if you're going to pick up or check out any, if you're kind of like the same kind of taste as me, and you're kind of looking for those kind of earlier albums to check out, this would be the first one I would tell people to check out. I just love this album. So that is Killing Machine. So, a few surprises, I'm sure. But, you know, when you're doing that kind of ranking like this, you don't want to be with the grain. You don't want to be like everyone else and people just to guess along with you and know exactly what you're going to pick. So that's why I like these kind of big discographies, because it really can go in any direction. So next up is going to be Angel of Retribution. Now, funnily enough, I did not like this album when I first heard it. I heard the songs like Judas Rising, Deal with the Devil, Hell Rider. I just thought Hell Rider was such an annoying song, and it's probably one of my favourite songs off this album. When I listened to that, it's definitely like a highlight for me now. So it's weird, but again, back with the great artwork, which they kind of, I would say, missed in like that kind of 90s period. Yeah, just back with some really great stuff, and it's just a really solid album. So that is Angel of Retribution. Next up is going to be, for me, Turbo. Now, this just gets so much shit off people, and people gonna say this is their hair metal album. It's not a hair metal album. I mean, come on, it's not hair metal. I mean, yes, they look hair metal. They look like they're actually in the circus, but it's not a hair metal album. It's still a heavy metal album. It's just maybe lighter, and like I said, with their kind of 70s to early 80s stuff, it's quite deep. Like, the lyrics are more in depth. This is more obviously radio friendly, a bit more anthemic for obviously playing arenas, stadiums. I mean, you've got songs like Turbo Lover, Locked In, Private Property, Parental Guidance, Rock You Around the World, Out in the Cold, awesome song, Wild Nights, Hot and Crazy Days. Just some really great tracks, but they're obviously aimed at a different audience. They're not aimed at that kind of person who's going to sit and ingest like a full album and just kind of get where the album's coming from. This is purely for popular reasons. This is obviously the direction they wanted to go in. But to me, it's still a solid album. It's one you want to just crank in the car on a hot day with the windows down. It's just a catchy album, and I don't know why it gets so much shit off people, but that is Turbo. Let me just have a wee rearrange here because I'm getting out of order. Next one is going to be the introduction of Richie Faulkner. KK Downing left the band at this time, and they recruited Richie Faulkner, and I think it's all the better for it. I think Richie does a really great job on this, and it's just an absolutely solid album top to bottom. Songs like Dragonaut, awesome. Redeemer of Souls, Halls of Valhalla, Rob Halford sounds immense on that track. Sword of Damocles, March of the Damned, another really great song. Down in Flames, Hell and Back, awesome song. Cold Blooded, Metalizer. I mean, it just goes on and on. It's just a solid album, and this is up there definitely with the best. Obviously, this is where it is in my ranking, but it's just awesome. And I kind of, I think because of albums like Nostradamus and Angel of Retribution at the time, I kind of like shied away from this album. But then I finally picked it up, gave it a listen. I remember being in the car, giving it its first listen, and I thought, this is immense. I don't know why I've kind of put off getting this. So yeah, and again, amazing artwork. Just superb stuff. I really should have got the LP out for this because of the artwork, but this is where it is. Redeemer of Souls, absolutely awesome. Okay, we're into the top 5. So, into the top 5, I will mention, obviously you'll have a different opinion, and I'm sure that opinion will change on your age, when you were born, whether what point and what period you came into Judas Priest. So stick your top 5, top 3, or even your top album in the comments section below, and let me know, and we can have a chat about what you think, and you can say what you think about my ranking. I'm sure some of you are thinking, yeah, good ranking. I'm pretty sure some of you are going, bullshit ranking. Anyway, top 5. We're going to go for 1984's Defenders of the Faith. Absolutely superb album. Free Wheel Burning, Jawbreaker, Rock Hard Ride Free, The Sentinel, Love Bites, Eat Me Alive, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, awesome song. Night Comes Down, Heavy Duty, Defenders of the Faith. It's just a solid Priest album. Again, great artwork, and it's a must-have from Priest. If you don't have this, pick it up. It is superb. Next up, another little surprise. My introduction to Priest, and that is Ram It Down from 1988. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what is this nut job all about, putting this so high in the ranking? But because it was kind of my proper introduction to a Judas Priest album, it's just got that that kind of click that it has with me. I mean, that's not saying it's not got some amazing tracks, because it has. Ram It Down, the title track, kicks off the album. It's a great song. Heavy Metal, Love Zone, Come and Get It, great song. Hard as Iron is the best song on the album. That is just a beast of a song. Blood Red Skies, that's kind of ballad on the album. That is really good as well, and it sounds quite electronic, but that does not put me off. I still think it's got great melody, and it's just a great composition of a song. I'm a Rocker is also a tremendous song. Johnny Be Good, I don't think it's that bad, but I know a lot of people think it's absolute shite. Love You to Death and Monsters of Rock is just that kind of closing track, and it's just that. That's a heavy track, but yeah, it's just awesome. And because it's my introduction to Priest, I have that special click with it, and again, amazing artwork. So that is a go-to album for me, just because I know the song so well. Coming in at number 3, 1982's Screaming for Vengeance. A superb album. This kind of topped my list for a while. I would say maybe even up until about a year ago. I would have put this at the top of my list. But obviously, I think the more I've listened to other albums and other albums coming out, this has kind of dropped down the list a bit, but it's still an insanely good album. It kicks off with The Hellion, which I think is maybe the best introduction to a heavy metal album, or album in general, of all time. Straight into Electric Eye, Riding on the Wind, Bloodstone, Take These Chains is a great song, Pain and Pleasure is a great song, Screaming for Vengeance, you've got Another Thing Coming, Fever, Devil's Child. It is superb, back to front. You can't be a Judas Priest fan if you don't have this album. It's just immense. So that is Screaming for Vengeance, coming in at number 3. So down to the last two. I'm sure you've kind of worked out by now what those last two are, but what order are they coming in? So number 2, and giving away my number 1, is going to be Firepower, their latest album from 2018. A perfect album. It's just superb. I got it in this little digibook. I wasn't expecting a little digibook actually, but I'm not sure if I'm a massive fan of these, but anyway, music. They brought out the first 3 tracks, which were Firepower, Lightning Strikes, and what was this? What was the third one? Was it Never the Heroes, or was it Evil Never Dies? It was one of those two. But yeah, I was really impressed with the tracks when they first came out. I thought, you know, this was an album that really had a lot of hype around it, and an album's not had that hype for a long time, especially like in my time collecting music. This by far had the biggest load of hype around it before this came out, and it was one of those albums that people were just dying to listen to and dying to get even on YouTube and talk about, and you know, because it was that good as well. It wasn't like it was all this hype and then it was just this kind of bullshit album that came out, and you know, the singles were good, but the album didn't like kind of live up to the singles. This album lived up to the singles and more. The singles aren't even the best tracks on the album. I mean, Necromancer, awesome. Children of the Sun, Guardians, that goes straight into Rising from Ruins, which I think is one of the best songs on the album. It's just superb. Flamethrower, Spectre, Traitor's Gate, No Surrender, Lone Wolf, and finishing off the album with Sea of Red. I mean, this is 14 tracks, which a lot of people would say that's a long album, but that is not a long album for this album, because every song is tremendous. And like I said, that kind of hype that surrounded it just kind of added to it. I mean, great songs, great artwork. Again, Richie Faulkner on guitar, just superb. The riffs in this are just tremendous. They're just, they're heavy, they're catchy. It's just everything you want from an album. So that is Firepower from 2018, just the perfect album. Now, this is obviously giving away my number 1. Now, I know I've raved about Firepower, and you might think, well, the way you've talked about it, that should be number 1, but I just cannot put this one any lower than number 1, and it's obviously Painkiller from 1990. The last album to feature Rob Halford before they kind of split, and it's weird to think that this kind of mirrors Iron Maiden. You know, Iron Maiden had great success with a lot of albums, then they kind of split, and then, or not split, but kind of moved on, and the lead singer moved on, and it kind of happened the kind of same time, just about with Judas Priest. I mean, they came out with this absolute beast of an album. I mean, songs on here, Painkiller, I mean, that's saying it all. Awesome song. Hell Patrol is awesome. All Guns Blazing, Leather Rebel, I think, is a superb song as well. And that might not be a song that people think, oh yeah, that's brilliant, but I think that's a brilliant song. I would say the weakest track on this is Metal Meltdown. I kind of struggle with song titles with the word metal in them. I don't know why. It's just one of those kind of niggly things in my brain. But that's definitely the weakest. Then you've got Nightcrawler, awesome song. Between the Hammer and the Anvil could easily be the best on the album. A Touch of Evil, awesome. Battle Hymn and One Shot at Glory. It's just flawless, really. I mean, Metal Meltdown is definitely the weakest, but the rest of it is just so good. And again, coming back with these amazing pieces of art on the album covers, just superb. So that is number 1 for me. Maybe no surprise. I bet I've given you some surprises through the list. But nobody's going to agree. I mean, with an album discography of 18, no one's going to have the same. So yeah, you can let me know what you think of my ranking. Let me know your top 5, top 3 down in the comments below. And I'll hopefully be back very soon with a CD and vinyl update. So in the meantime, let me know what you think, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.